Hi everybody. Let's take a look at Bela Bartok's piece called Shepherd's Tune, found on page 122. Bartok was a brilliant Hungarian pianist and composer. He was also keenly interested in researching the folk music of Eastern European countries, and this would be the Slavic people or the Slavs from countries like Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, the former Czechoslovakia, parts of Russia and the Ukraine, and even as far as Turkey. Bartok, along with his composer friend Zoltán Kodály, went out into the countryside of these lands and had the people sing the melodies of their songs and show him the rhythms of their dances, all the while recording this music into his big phonograph. Then, of course, he would go back to his studio and compose music that included these melodies and rhythms. And so literal quotes of the melodies he heard the people sing would be written into his own compositions. The fact that Bartok researched and recorded the musical examples so carefully made him almost the first ethnomusicologist, that is, someone who studies the music of different ethnic groups or people groups in the world. This piece, Shepherd Tune, now we are about to study, is probably a little tune that people sang as far back as the early 1900s and even perhaps back into the 1800s. And this is something like our Home on the Range or Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, or even Bob Dylan's Blowin' in the Wind. We think of folk music as having a guitar accompaniment, maybe some simple drum beats or tambourine. And it's really music of the people. And that's what captivated Bartok's attention so much. Listen to Shepherd's Tune and picture perhaps the Hungarian countryside, two shepherds taking a break from watching their sheep with perhaps a lute or guitar-like instrument and maybe a flute. Doesn't it give rather a plaintive or lonely feeling of maybe out in the countryside, just the two of them, and sounds rather reflective and introspective? I think it's a very pretty little tune. And we don't know what the words are, but most likely something in Hungarian or Romanian. Now, let's divide Shepherd's Tune up into 4 sections or phrases, and we can see this here on the music. I've marked it with an A, a B, a C, and an A1. And it's always good to section off your music when you want to practice it, so you have small pieces to practice and not the entire piece in one setting necessarily. Now, our hand position is in A minor, and let's take a look at that. And here we have A minor. And we'll see the notes in the left hand A, B, C, D, E. And of course the right hand also A, B, C, D, E. If we look at the actual keyboard, we'll notice I've got middle C about here. And my right hand is to the right of middle C a little bit higher. And my left hand is going to straddle middle C right in the middle there. You want to practice taking your hands on and off the keys. This is a very easy minor position. Now, this is the relative minor and the dark cousin to C major. In other words, as you can see from the notes, there are no sharps or flats in either scale, whether you're talking about C major or its dark cousin, A minor. So then every key signature actually has a double meaning. It could be major or it could be minor, and you simply have to look at the notes to tell you which one it is. In this case, we see the fact that we start with A, and we have so many A's in the right hand that we're going to establish this key as A minor, and it follows, obviously, the notes of the A minor position as well. Now, the music begins with something called an ostinato, which is a little pattern of notes that sounds like this. And that little pattern creates a simple background or an accompaniment for the melody. It's rather guitar-like, and it sounds right against the melody like this. So once again, the ostinato by itself just kind of goes on its merry little way and creates a very, very calm backdrop for that beautiful melody. Now, the melody, the right-hand notes, it really moves twice as fast as the eighth notes, and you'll see here a series of eighth notes. Every so often we're slowed down by a quarter note, but typically the majority of these notes are definitely eighth notes. Now, and you might hear the counting going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3, 1 and 2. And I have taken the time to write the counts into my music, and it would be a good idea for you to do the same so that you can track the beat all the way through. Now, a good way to feel the rhythm is the left hand can certainly play the ostinato, and the right hand can tap to adjust to doing twice as fast as the left, kind of like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 4. And it may be a little clearer to hear if you saw 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, something like that, when you're going ahead to master the rhythm in both hands. Now, if we take a look at the intervals, once we have a good feel for that rhythm, we know we're going to start on A, which is a step above the G line, and we simply go up a third, down a second, up a third, down a second, down a third, and up a second. Notice that little pattern. It's going to repeat itself right away in measure 2, identical. Measure 3 is slightly different. It goes up to high E on finger 5, but then again down a second, up a second, down 2/3, which makes a broken triad. And notice your fingering here would be 5, 3, 1 to create that broken triad. So here we are, 5, 3, 1, up a second to B, and back to the first measure, which is repeated here. So once again, when you have the flow of the eighth notes, it'll sound 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Up to E, wait for the quarter note. 1 and 2 and 3. There it is. So when we put it together, again, the beautiful little simple ostinato against the very plain simple melody would sound again like this. 1 and 2 and wait for the quarter, 1 and. And there you have it. Now, the B phrase, the rhythmic variety, is a very clear feature of this section. Let's take a look at some of the note values. The notes include quarter notes, a dotted quarter note, a single eighth note, many eighth notes here, and a quarter rest. So we have great variety, Bartok wrote in. And we don't know what the dancers or the singers were doing, but he's given us some nice variety. Let's count off the rhythm of the right hand. It would sound something like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. You're off. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and you're off there. Now you might say, why weren't these held long? They have dots, but we know that dots above notes are different from dots to the side of notes. A side dot is a rhythm thing called the dotted quarter note, but a dot above a note or below is a staccato thing, and that's a short clip sound. So all dots are not created equal, and we have to remember what they mean. So watch out for your rhythm. Make sure you count 3 and 4, a 1.5 beat on the dotted quarter, but remember to bounce a little bit higher on the staccato, and we'll review that in just a second. We're going to start with 5 on E, and notice 3 E's in a row before it drops a third. This is up a second, down, up a second, down a third, and back again to that up a second there. This goes back to a high E, drops a third, merely steps, down a third, up a third, down a second, and back and forth on thirds, rocking, and up a second to stop on the C. And once again, our staccato will sound 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and I lift for the rest. One more staccato, 1 and 2 and lift for the rest. Now, let's look at some of the measures where the left hand joins in, and guess what? It's all contrary motion. Notice here, here, and again down here. If we look at this measure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, measure 6 it is, the notes are D, C, D, B, C. Well, if I had to play that on the keyboard, D, C, D, B, C, I would be playing finger numbers that look something like this: 4, 3, 4, 2, 3. And you'd put them right on the keyboard: 4, 3, 4, 2, 3. If we look back and notice the contrary motion, identical, up, up versus down, up, down, we'll remember that the left hand has to play exactly the same finger numbers to create the contrary motion. So just like the right, we want 4, 3, 4, 2, 3. And on the keyboard, 4, 3, 4, 2, 3. If we go together, it'll look like 4, 3. Let me do it like so you can see it. 4, 3, 4, 2, 3. Notice the opposite motion. On the keyboard, it will look 4, 3, 4, 2, 3 with the rest. And a little faster. There we go. The next, or another area of contrary motion would be right here in this measure. And the notes are D, B, D, B, C. Of course, the fingering on those notes would be 4, 2, 4, 2, 3. The left hand has identical contrary motion, and so we want to carry the same fingers and together 4, 2, 4, 2, 3. Looking like this on the keyboard. 4, 2, 4, 2, and 3, and you lift for the rest following. A little faster would be 4, 2, 4, 2, 3, and off. We have one final measure of contrary motion in this B section, and truly the notes are opposite each other. We're going to go down a third and then up by seconds, and below we go up a third and down by seconds. Notice we go down a third, up a third, and left hand goes up a third, down a third. Now, this one is E, which is 5, down a third to be finger 3, 4, 5. But in the left hand, we start on 3. So in this circumstance, the finger numbers are not going to be the same, even though it truly is contrary motion. I guess you would say this is not textbook contrary motion because the fingering is different in both of the hands. But here's the way the left hand would sound. If we're on middle C here, we're gonna, with finger 3, we're gonna go up a third, down by steps there, rock on thirds, and then of course down a step to your next. So together, this measure would sound, start with your staccato, in a third, opposite motion, back in a third, out a third, before you go into 4, 2, 4 on the next measure. So a little faster in that measure, 1 and 2. So the B section going closer to tempo would sound 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 3 and rest and short and you're off. Now, in the C phrase, the rhythmic variety continues, but this time in the form of longer note values and longer rest values and the use of ties. Let's take a look. If we look at the C, we can see we're starting on the note E, and it's going to go right down the 5-finger pattern. So the notes are easy. Now, if we take a look at the way the tie works here, and we know that a tie is a short curved line that connects two notes that are the same. So we see that, and here's our definition. A tie combines the values of two notes that are the same. And so our whole note is 4. Our quarter note on the same space, that is still E, adds one more beat. So we have a total of 5 beats here. In 4/4 time, we are going to hold the whole note 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and one more 1, and 2, and 3, and so you'll notice the eighth notes that are in blue don't move until beat 2 end. One more time, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 4 and. So we know that a tie is really nothing more than a hold, that it has to connect two notes that are the same. If the notes are different, it's no longer a tie, then it's a slur, and we have to connect smoothly in that legato style. But the same note always tells us that we are looking at a tie. So once again, we have 4 counts, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and extra 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, right down the 5-finger pattern. Now, the left hand, if we look at this, will be right here. It has to wait 2 counts. Notice the half rest. So we're going to count off 2 beats and come in on beat 3. Notice another tie. These notes, I've crossed that out, so I'm not tempted to play it again. I have to hold it. You'll see my notes here on the music. So 2 plus 3 gives us a 5-count value, and then one more over here on the quarter note. So the way I would count it, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and strike again on 4. So really the same note all the way across, but lots of holding and long values. Can you picture the two dancers perhaps bowing to each other on these 2 E's where the hands have separate entrances? Something like and 2 and something, please, of course. And so there's a little dialogue going on between the hands there. I think that's very charming. If the hands go together, it will sound just like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 tie, 2 and 3 and 4 and this is the place where most people crash and burn, because they jump the tie, they rush the tie, and they don't hold the tie for that extra beat, and it throws the rhythm off. But if you can exercise great patience in this C section and wait for that tie to be over and don't move until beat 2, you will have nailed the C section. One more shot at it. Listen. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and there we go. Now, the music somewhat returns to the opening phrase with the reappearance of the ostinato, and you can see it come back here again. And so we call it A1 because it takes on some of the characteristics of that first phrase with that ostinato pattern. You'll remember it. Coming back, we know this. Now, toward the end, the ostinato kind of breaks down. It goes A, up a third C, and E. So all good things must come to an end, and that little ostinato sort of times itself out and finishes with a broken A minor triad at the very end. And we'll be aware of that. Oh, notice the ongoing in the right hand, the ongoing use of eighth notes, as well as more right hand ties. And I tend to cross out the second note there so I don't play on it. But as a matter of fact, a tie connects the previous note to the first note of every measure. And this creates a slight delay in the rhythm. The note that follows the tied note doesn't get played until the and of beat 1. So there is an upset of the rhythmic flow, and the accent or the stress gets shifted to the weak part of the beat, that is the and, with no stress on beat 1. That's the strong beat. And when there's a shifting of the stress from the strong beats, for example, beats 1 or 3, this is known as a syncopation, moving the stress to the weak part of the beat, such as the and. Listen, I'm going to keep my finger in the key here from the previous tie. So I'm going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's take a look at the intervals quickly. If we started with we had to keep finger 2 in the B. We're going to tie it here and go back to the A, up a second, up a third, down a second, down a third, up a second. We're going to tie again. Don't let go. Back up to the high E. It's a straight 5-finger pattern. Going down, finishes a step up, and this measure is the same as the one over here, except the rhythm stalls out, down a third on quarter notes, and finishes up a second. And there is your right hand. Now, even though we don't hear a note sounding on beat 1 from the right hand because the ties cover up or obscure that beat, we do get a very clear sense of pulse from the left hand, because the left hand plays on all 4 beats of the measure and gives a solid sense of structure to the rhythm. Notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so all the way to the end. And so as the hands play together, you will hear how the right hand jumps in on the and of 1 after the left hand plays on beat 1. And this is what creates that offbeat, upsetting feeling that we call syncopation or syncopated rhythm. Listen. A1. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 2, 3, 4. In this piece, Bartok wanted to challenge young musicians like you to be thinking musicians who know how to handle a variety of rhythms, counting out loud, and who are able to manage independence between the hands, or what they call the two voices. With careful study and hands-alone practicing, you will master this piece and have a nice accomplishment on your hands. I hope you'll enjoy learning this lovely Hungarian folk tune. Good luck.